Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio, the show about ways to stay competitive in a changing market, break through business plateaus, and respond to the changing expectations of today's customers. Your host, Jess Dewell, is a rapid growth entrepreneur, consultant, and business advocate with a 20-year track record of business excellence. She candidly discusses how to achieve your growth strategy and realize your company's unfulfilled potential. Now, here's Jess.
You are in the right place for conversations about current needs that we as business leaders face regarding technology, changing customer expectations, and quickly changing markets. This program is about what it means to reach short-term goals and increase our confidence in our long-term positioning. This is program 191, Multiple Revenue Streams for Growth. Strategically, having a business with different streams of income mitigate overall risk for drastic drops in revenue from a particular area. Today, we're talking with Mark Podolsky, owner of Frontier Properties, a very reputable and successful land investing company, and he has been buying and selling land full-time since 2001. Mark, it's great to have you on the program today.
Jessica, I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
Now, this is interesting because you do real estate, right? Land and multiple streams of income is really interesting to me in this vein and in this concept because it's something that every business strives for.
Right. So I learned early on, I used to be an investment banker, and I was working in mergers and acquisitions with private equity groups, and I actually hated it. And I have like 45-minute commute to work and back, and I was micromanaged, and it was long hours and high stress, and like it got so bad for me. I wouldn't get the Sunday blues anticipating Monday coming around. I'd get the Friday blues anticipating the weekend going by really fast and having to be back at work on Monday. So my firm hires this guy, and he's telling me that as a side hustle, he's going to these tax deed auctions and he's buying up raw land, pennies on the dollar, and he's flipping them online, and he's making an average return on his investment of 300%.
No way.
So I don't believe him because I'm looking at companies all day long. Yeah. And, you know, a great company has 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. Great. Yep. Average is 10%. And I'm looking at companies all day long, less than 10%. So I've got $3,000 saved up for car repairs. I go with him to Mexico. I do exactly what he says to do. I buy up 10 half-acre parcels at an average price of $300 each, flip them online. They all sell for an average price of $1,200 each. It worked. Took all that money, and I went to an auction where I live in Arizona. You know, there's 2,000. No one's in the room. I'm buying up lots. I'm buying up acreage for nothing. And over the next 6 months, I made over $92,000 cash on this one auction. So I go to my wife. I'm like, honey, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to be a full-time land investor. And she's pregnant. And she's like, absolutely not. That's what I'm So
I love how the timing of life totally strategically shows up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Way. Obstacle in your way. Obstacle happens to the best of us. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So, you know, she forced me to be like smart about it. Like, you don't just impulsively quit your job. So I invested in land part-time until the land investing income exceeded the investment banking income. And then I quit, and I've been doing it full-time ever since. And what I learned early on from just looking at other businesses was I wanted to be out of something called solo economic dependency, which meant that if I wasn't working, I wasn't making any money.
Right.
So the land income allowed me the time and the resources to start methodically creating systems and strategies to get out of solo economic dependency and create these multiple streams of income. But everything that I do is passive in a way. So the land investing, the income that comes from that is passive income. So it's a one-time sort of set it and forget it. And I can kind of walk you through exactly what I do and how I do it in the land business. But from the land business, I needed another challenge. And so I created a training business where I teach people how to buy and sell raw land in the way that I do it, so I can help them create passive income in their lives. And then that business has its own passive income streams as well. So again, it was a set it and forget it model. And then from there, I had some software issues in my own business, and it got so bad that I thought, well, I'll just scratch my own itch. And I created my own SaaS model, which is another passive income play. And then I wrote a book, which again is another, create it once and then has that passive income as well.
So let's talk.
Everything I try to do is evergreen.
Right. And that's really important, especially when, markets will go up and down, transactions will go up and down. Real estate is actually fairly, I don't know if it stays up, but it always there's some sort of a balloon associated with real estate that we've heard over and over again in the last 2 decades. Now, and thinking about all these models and taking something that can be volatile and figuring out how to not let it be so volatile in business is really fascinating to me, because it's something that we strive to do strategically as whether it's individuals or companies. And, something that came up for me while you were speaking is a lot of technology companies innovate the way you have innovated and created income streams one after the other by building on or purposing them. And that is, here's the idea, and I can make it work. And now what can we do with it? And there are all these side projects within large organizations that are doing the same thing. So we're talking with you in this amazing scenario. And I just want to put out to our audience that this is scalable because you're already doing it. And if you don't know you're doing it, you better go talk to the people that are working with you and for you, because they're figuring out ways to be more productive, make their lives easier, have more income in their roles in your organization too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so you had mentioned you had gone from a platform to training and you ended up at this SaaS model and this SaaS product. How did that come about for you? Because now I'm thinking, this is not a technology business. This is not a place where we're going to get technology innovation. Yet you've come up with a model that is software as a service, or sometimes service as a software, depending on what acronym or what other letters we're putting in there. But it's a traditionally non-technology-based business. And so I'm fascinated in that area. How did that come about?
So the way that my land investing business works is essentially, so Jessica, where do you live?
I live in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, wow. You win. That's nice.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go to, let's say, the treasurer in this county in Texas. Okay. And I'll see on that tax delinquent list, Jessica owes $200 in back taxes on this 10-acre parcel in Texas. Well, you're advertising 2 things to me. Number one, you've no emotional attachment to that raw land. You're in Colorado, properties in Texas. And number 2 is you're distressed in some way financially, because when we don't value something, we don't pay for it. And you have not paid your property taxes. And you're getting notices every single month from the county treasurer that says, hey, Jessica, don't pay your property taxes. We're going to either auction that property off to a tax deed investor or a tax lien investor. So what I'll do then is I'll look at the comparable sales for the last 12 to 18 months. And then all I'm going to do is divide by 4. And that's going to give me what Warren Buffett would call a 300% margin of safety. So I'm going to send you an offer. So let's say the comp is 10 grand. The most I'm going to pay for your property is $2,500. So you accept it because you're going to get nothing if you don't pay your taxes. And $2,500 is better than nothing. Now, in reality, 3 to 5% of people accept my quote unquote top dollar offer. So you accept it. I go through due diligence, make sure you still own the property, make sure the back taxes are only $200, no breaks in the chain of title, no liens or encumbrances. And this is where we get really geeky. We have an office in the Philippines where we have virtual assistants tied into an American title company doing our due diligence for us. And so for $11, I get my due diligence done, which then creates my marketing package. I'm getting plat maps, I'm getting aerial maps, I'm getting GIS maps, I'm getting pictures, I'm getting video. of everything that a buyer would want to know about that property. I can see the wheels are spinning.
Yeah. It's interesting because that's exactly what happens in any product development. And that's the thing that I think is the big key takeaway here, is that we have the ability, with all the information around us, with all of the tools, provided we can put them together in the right order at the right time to get the result somewhere in the vicinity of what we were hoping for. And then, of course, iterating and making that faster and faster. So knowing a little bit of the backstory of how your business works is great. So let's leap forward and talk about the software as a service process, that model. How did you turn this concept of real estate into this software as a service? And if I remember correctly, you said you built it on top of your training program.
Right. So essentially, once I sold the property, I would do owner financing.
Yep.
So your property I would sell for, let's say, $12,000. Mm-hmm. I get a $2,500 down payment. Then I make it a car payment of $449 a month at 9% interest for the next 84 months. Mm-hmm. Well, what was happening was there was like $25,000, $30,000 software, bank level software. Well, I didn't need that.
Right.
And then on the other end of it was this crappy, sort of just software program that was creating more time for me, because now on Sundays, every time I'd get a check, right, I'd have to go in, I had to manually put in what they paid. Then I would have to do the journal entries. Right. And if they were late, I'd have to manually contact them and say, where's your payment? Mm-hmm. And it was actually, costing me time. Well, I can always make more money, but I can't get more time. Mm-hmm. So there was no web-based solution. I thought, well, this is kind of dumb. It's either $25,000 bank level software or this crappy software. And I went to a developer in Silicon Valley and said, this is what I want. Mm-hmm. And let's do it. And I have this whole community of people that already know, like, and trust me in my model, in my business, that I think I could service as well. And so we started to develop it using Ruby on Rails. Mm-hmm. And what I did, which was, I didn't know I was doing, he's like, Mark, you're really smart about it, is I pre-sold it before I developed it. So I had revenue coming in that I used to pay the developer to create the product, because I wasn't going to, sort of live by this model of, if I build it, they will come. I wanted them to put money down first and then create it.
Okay. So there are a lot of current strategies in terms of building a sustainable business and leveraging it to scale without adding overhead, is what I'm hearing. Right. And when we think about this technology, right, this new way we can serve our following, we can serve our customers. Tell me like 3 things that you thought of as you were going, well, this could be an idea. So what are the 3 things that you decided you were going to ensure were going to be included in this pre-sale to basically throw spaghetti against the wall and see if there was enough stickiness to take the idea to the next step?
Right. So I wanted my customers to be absolutely certain they were going to get paid, right? And lower the default rate on these notes. Uh-huh. That was the sticky piece. And so what we developed was a multi-payment system that no one has today.
Yeah.
So we partnered with banks, and essentially we draw out through ACH their checking account, mm-hmm. right? The routing number and the account number, they fill out a form. So it's a set it and forget it system. However, we also get a credit card as a backup on file, and mm-hmm. we can get up to like multiple payments, right? So if the ACH fails, the credit card on file will hit, and we have a backup, and we know we're going to get paid. Now, if every payment on file fails, we know we got a bad client. Time to resell that property, and let them know, like, we're going to have to take that property back.
Right. So you were increased getting paid, you were decreasing time spent to get paid, right?
Exactly.
And what would be a third thing that you think is like one of those ahas or icing on the cake that you knew that somebody in a situation like you doing what you do would benefit from? What was that?
Right. So that was the automation piece of notifications. Mm-hmm. Hey, you got paid. Hey, thanks for your payment. you're late or we didn't get a receiver payment. So that was the one piece, was the automation of the notifications. The other one though was the borrower. So they could log in, they can make a prepayment at any time. So, and they could also just see what their current balance was. And it avoided those two annoying phone calls I would always get. Mark, can I make a prepayment this month? Mark, what's my current balance? And so that eliminated that piece as well. And so those three things combined made it really sticky.
How many ideas have you said no to because some part of that equation was not there?
Yeah. So I like the Warren Buffett philosophy. Less is more. And so unless it's an incredible opportunity or an incredible idea, I won't chase it. So I really try to focus on my core competencies, things that are going to be evergreen only and create passive income, and then also are scalable. So if they don't meet sort of this criteria, then I'll just pass. So, Derek Sivers has this great quote. If it's not hell yes, it's a no. Like everything in his life. Yeah.
Right. It's so funny. There's this, my first company was acquired by a company called Digital River out of Eden Prairie, Minnesota.
Oh, I know Digital River. Sure.
Yeah. And so, loved being part of that team for as long as I was, learned so much. And in fact, one of my counterparts, his name is Pete Olson. And Pete, we were all charged with how do we increase revenue, right? With same concept. What could these passive revenue streams, what could they be? One of the things that came up was, we called it back then, and I know this phrase still floats around, it's called low-hanging fruit. Easy stuff we could do because we're already doing it, and then leverage it for income, right? Low-hanging fruit. And he came up with this idea. And his idea was to take what we were doing, which was being the merchant account of record for so we process credit cards for software being sold on CD and download and shareware back then. And then, of course, it switched to all online. Well, once it switched to more and more online, he came up with this idea of download insurance. We were already giving people this way to download their software right away. But now we were saying, for a few extra bucks, you can download it whenever you want, however long your license lasts. And it was great. It was easy. It was already there. And not only did the revenue that come in pay for what we were already using, of course, it added to the bottom line as well. So it was a fabulous idea from thinking out of the box and doing something differently. And what I hear you saying along the same lines is, I've got to know my core competencies. I've got to know what I'm good at to be able to know, can I move forward with this? And what resources are available to me? So how do you know? How do you know what your core competencies are?
So it's just what I've been doing ever since I was a kid, which is, essentially trying to find a high margin business that I can do fairly well at. Like I just enjoy it. Like I enjoy hustling, right? I enjoy the thrill of a good deal. Like when I was a kid, my dad was a wholesale grocer. We go to the grocery store, like, can't have that pack of gum. It's $1 here. I get it for 60 cents. Right. Like, so so any kind of thing that sort of appealed to me in that way. And then as far as, well, are there people in the world that can do this better than me? And kind of knowing that, I don't want to be the smartest one in the room. So are there better people who can market this? Are there better people that can develop this? Are there better people that can execute on this? And can I do that? And why am I going to enjoy working with these people? And so those are the types of things that I really look at, because if it's not fun, I don't want to do it.
Okay, so you didn't get to quit your job when your wife was pregnant, and you waited until the income from your side hustle exceeded your regular job. How many kids do you have now?
3.
There we go. I love it.
Yeah.
Got to bring that into the conversation, because it sounds like, maybe that's part of the driver, but it also sounds like inherently you learned some great skills from your dad. Observation,
absolutely.
Value, things like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you live in Arizona, which is cool. So it's nice, literally cool there right now. It's not hot.
No, we're like 60s. It's beautiful. It's sunny.
I love it. Oh.
Yeah,
Are you
it's
in
like
the central
Golden Eyes.
part?
I'm in Phoenix. Yeah.
Yeah, the greater Phoenix area.
Yeah.
I got lots of ties there. Lots of ties.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
well, we could go down that road. I was born in Mesa.
Oh, okay. So I'm like in like the Paradise Valley area, like the little.
I know exactly. Everybody who's listening, you know what? Now we're just going down memory lane, and we could talk about all kinds of things and how fast it's grown and what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's great. Yeah. My grandma moved away for a little while, and then they moved back. Right. And so it's kind of cool when we go back to visit. I'm like, I get to say, this is actually where I was born. To my son. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, this is where I was born. It's kind of funny. Good college, great food. You know what I mean? I mean, all the way around, good people, and it's growing fast. And there's a lot of new industry there. And it makes sense. Do you do most of your business then in Arizona, like in terms of the land part?
No, I focus on Arizona, the Southwest, a little bit in Northwest California and Florida. So the Sunshine States, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Anywhere they grow citrus or avocados, apparently. I learned.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. All right. What is your view around the sustainable growth that you have created through these models?
Right. So one of my favorite books is that Andy Grove book, Only the Paranoid Survive.
Only the Paranoid Survive?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm paranoid every day. I've got like an anxiety disorder. And then I always think to myself, well, like if everything's going to change, what's not going to change?
Right.
And essentially, I think what's not going to change is I think people are always going to want a real asset. Yeah. And they're always going to want a good deal. So if I can provide those two things, I think I'm going to be okay. And then as far as the training business goes, I always think about, well, the saturation point, like our margins are 300 to 1,000%. Those are unsustainable margins, yet they keep sustaining. And it doesn't make any sense because you would think there would be competition would come in, private equity groups, hedge funds, like big money would like when I was doing investment banking, I thought, these margins can't last. This is going to be at the most 20% gross margin business. Well, what we found is it's just a very inefficient market, and it's small enough that hedge funds and private equity groups actually have too much money to deploy here. They need to do bigger projects. And so there's like this sweet little sort of unsexy niche. Like you won't go on HGTV with a DIY network and see flip this land. It's me in front of my computer. It's the most boring thing ever. Right. So we have this sort of unsexy niche with an inefficient market. And it's really one of the last bastions of anything where it's truly what a buyer and a seller agree to.
Keep this conversation going. You're listening, you're learning. I know the wheels are turning for you as well. So use hashtag VBB Radio and join in this conversation. Let's keep it going online to learn from each other. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the voice of Bold Business Radio. In every program, we share stories, tips, and concepts that benefit short-term goals and increase confidence in long-term positioning. Stay current and receive programs to continue sparking ideas about growth strategy by subscribing to the program at voiceofboldbusiness.com. Now, back to Jess.
You are listening to P191, Multiple Streams for Revenue Growth. And I'm talking with special guest Mark Podolsky, owner of Frontier Properties and builder of Scalable Ideas. Now, what we've been talking about so far is getting a basic understanding of what Mark's business is and how he is using it to leverage and grow. Because you may not know Mark's industry in real estate. You may not know his background in investment banking, but you can hear from the examples that he's given us and what we've been talking about that creating something new out of something that already exists and creating scalability where there seems to be inefficiency is actually possible. And that's what we're going to dig into in the second half of our show. And so before we kind of move back into that, I just have to know, how did you, did you have any fear or worry being paranoid of the fact that you didn't know how to do this? And how did it hold you back or not?
I mean, I was so miserable at my job. I had all this sort of pent up energy moving forward.
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of like a ready, fire, aim guy.
Me too.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
it just kind of, I would just, just be mean and lean. Like, okay, what can I control? What can't I control? Well, here's the things I can control. I control how many offers I can make. That's easy. I can control my pricing. That's easy. I can control my location. That's easy. And I can control how many times I try to market the property to sell it.
Yeah.
And then, based on that, well, okay, what's the conversion on that? And so just focusing on what I can control really helped with my anxiety as far as failing, because I thought, well, even if I do fail, at least I'll fail trying really hard at doing this. And that'd be okay. So maybe I'll get another job, right? And I'd learn something from it. So
the worst thing that could possibly happen. Gee.
Right. So it wasn't like life or death for me.
Yeah.
And so,
okay. But I think
like
we need to pull that out. Yeah, it feels like it. And that's our lizard brain. So I was kind of making fun, but I'm also saying, let's make fun, because what's the worst that can happen? Right, Mark?
No, it's true. And,
yeah.
And, now it's been, oh my gosh, 18 years, I'm happily unemployable. But in those early days when I didn't know, and I'd have to face my wife, and my little baby, like, okay, like she wasn't working, like there was no net financially. There is a certain like this crazy entrepreneurial mentality, like, okay, well, I got to make this work. But then there's also that sort of, the calmer part of you that you intellectualize it, like, well, really, you really have to make it like, we're not going to starve. Like I've got some human capital that I could deploy elsewhere. It's going to be okay.
I love how your logic just is your friend.
Yeah.
In my world, this, go and then think about it. Logic tends to just not fit in anywhere. And I say that with a grain of salt, because one thing that you and I have in common, regardless of our approach to ideas and scaling and growth in life in general, for our well-being and the impact that we have on those around us, is there's always a metric. How do I know I'm on path? How do I know I'm going in the right direction? How do I check in and make sure that the performance that I've gotten so far is actually in line with where I'm going? And so having some of those metrics, those key indicators that you're checking in with, it sounds like you're not setting it and forgetting those. How often do you check in with your metrics?
Right. So every week I have a team.
Every week.
Meeting.
Okay.
Right. And we look at those metrics. How many offers went out? How many deals are pending? How many deals did we close? How much more passive income did we create?
Got it.
How much enterprise value did we create? And so if those numbers are in line, that's good. No one needs to get fired that week. But if they're not, something's got to change.
Yeah. And so are you naturally disconnected? I say disconnected. That's not the word I want.
My wife would say yes.
Yeah.
Like emotionally disconnected? Yes.
No, well, the good news is it's in your business too then. I can't speak to your wife, but I bet it's not that bad.
No, I'm a little disconnected for sure.
Yeah. Well, okay, so how does that serve you? So for somebody like me and other people that are listening, where it's our pet project, we've come up with this idea. It's actually somehow passed all of the metrics that we could have put together. So now when we are the ultimate decision makers, we might go forward and there's, but if we're not, we're now at the place where we're going to create buy-in for those who are either with us or that we're trying to get the buy-in for, who are the ultimate decision makers, right? So anywhere in that spectrum, this applies. And what advice and tips would you have for us that are a little bit more emotionally invested and let our lizard brain and that fear of being told no get in the way?
Yeah. So one of the things that I do is I'm really aware of those thoughts. I practice it every day. I use an app called Headspace, and every day I meditate for 20 minutes.
Huh?
And when you become more aware of how crazy we are in our heads,
Yeah.
don't take it so seriously, that little voice. Because if I personified that voice,
Yeah.
that person, like, first of all, they never shut up. And second of all, they flip on a dime. This, like, they're constantly judging and they're constantly narrating. Like, really? I'm going to make a major decision
Yeah.
based on that voice? Like, come on.
The one we made up that is all knowing, that has no
Yeah.
credibility whatsoever.
They have no credibility. Exactly. So practicing that takes time, but then you start seeing, like, we're all kind of talking to each other, like talking to ourselves all day long, and like, overreacting or underreacting or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, let's get to reality.
Right.
Like, so I want to get to the reality of it. The reality of it is, right, there's no cougars that are going to attack me anymore.
No.
When I walk outside, right?
Right.
And so,
well, it depends on where you live. Maybe not in Arizona.
Well, okay, we do have bobcats, but still,
there we go.
Like the odds
the
of that
probability is seriously low.
Right. Like you skiing have a higher probability of getting hurt than I do.
Right.
Taking a walk in my neighborhood.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I think having that awareness of, this is, this fear is just something that my brain is making up. Like, it's not real. Like, in this very moment, what is the problem in this moment? And there isn't a problem in this moment. And if something happens, I can deal with it in that moment. I can't deal with something that's not real.
Oh, come and hang out with me for a few days.
Yeah. And I was just, yeah.
And the reason is because what I hear, and I'm going to say this differently because I think we can build on this right here. And that is, when we're thinking of ideas and when we're evaluating and analyzing ideas that we thought were going to work and actually are not working, and we have to rip the Band-Aid off and just let it go. We must become emotionally detached enough to make a good business decision. And a good business decision usually is without emotion. And so for those of us that have a lot of emotion and want to hold on to that and are like, please, I know if we just keep working at it, maybe not. Now, there is something to be said. Okay, so there's that piece of it, right?
Jessica, I can solve this for you.
Please tell me right now.
It's called going to the coffee shop with your mentor.
Yes.
Because they're not emotionally involved. And they'll just say, Jessica, good idea. It's not going to scale. The market's too small. It's going to be commoditized.
Okay, but so think about the guy who started what you're doing, right? Your industry, this, and I wrote down these words from when you were talking, which is this, and you were an investment banker. You're like, how does this sustainable? Because it was overlooked and there were many inefficiencies. So you came into this overlooked and inefficient market and are making a living off of it by making it more efficient and taking advantage of the fact that it's actually bigger than it seems because it's so overlooked, even though it sounds like it might be small. And so when we make a decision and when we're toying with that, right, how do we go? I love it that you're saying, just have somebody else tell you and just trust them enough to listen. What if it hasn't been long enough? Right? Sometimes we let go of our decisions too soon. Have you ever done that?
Okay, so Mr. Wonderful, Shark Tank. If in 36 months you're not profitable, quit.
Yes.
Give it at least 36 months. I mean, have a little grit.
Love it. But you have a milestone. You're not going into it blind. And when the milestone comes, honor it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Because I hear you like, no. That's one of the things I'd like to do in 2019. No. That's a skill I'm building.
Yeah. I mean, we only have so many hours in a day, and there's always going to be good opportunities, but where are the amazing opportunities? Right?
Ooh, yes.
That's what I want, that opportunity that's going to keep me up at night and I can't sleep. And when that happens, I know I'm onto something, but when it doesn't, and it's just, you're either doing it for the money or you're doing it for some other reason that doesn't really, it's not good. It's a good reason. It's not
Right.
the best reason. Then it's a pass.
So we're going to go deeper than this. Okay.
Yeah. Like just have a coffee cup. What would Buffett do? WWBD.
Done. Exactly. Say
Right.
it again. What would Buffett do? WWBD.
BD. Right.
Perfect. Now, see, you're a banker. I'm not a banker, but I like Warren Buffett and I learn a lot from him. And what Buffett knows and what it sounds like you know in the grand scheme of things is exactly who you are and what you stand for. So you have a set of values that you are putting in the front of everything. And if it gets through your values, then it's worth looking at a little bit more. And then it goes in through a different scrutiny of, okay, so now here are some logistics and some processes that I have built that I know how to test out this idea and look for holes. And then it goes to that next step. But it starts with the personal values.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've got to have those bumpers of values. Absolutely. Otherwise, you'll make yourself crazy. But once you're within that metric, then it's, can you be flexible like a yogi, right? And be curious and start asking, the questions and then looking at it from an impersonal point of view. Then put on your investor hat. Well, if I was an investor, what do I like about this company, right? And then you kind of get less emotional about it. And then if you're excited about it from that point of view, you're excited about it from an ownership point of view, and you're excited about it like, I can build, a team around this.
Yep.
Try it and then pre-sell it. Don't build it until you've got a market. Don't guess. Sell it first. If no one's going to take their credit card out and put money down on it, then you got to go back to the drawing board.
So you went through the whole process and we're focused on the last. I'm going to bring us back and I'm going to focus us back in on personal values. Do you have a couple personal values that you would be willing to share with us that you use as that first filter?
Well, like a personal value. Well, I mean, if it's not a hell yes, everything's a no.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's got to really light me up personally.
Personal values. Right. Okay.
Right.
And so for you,
yeah,
there has to be some sort of an ignition. It has to have some sort of an excitement. There's an excitement behind it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. So so the value of, I value excitement because it makes me want to learn. It makes me want to face the unknown. It makes me want to see what can happen here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So yeah, this is one of the things I do. I'm like, I hear what you're saying. So let's break this down, because when we understand what's underneath, we can now better understand everything else that you've already said. So anybody who has been watching us, in addition to listening to us, has been watching me when Scott has the camera on me and I'm like looking up at the ceiling and watching everything in my head and experiencing all of these feelings about what Mark is sharing, because it does. I think that's really what it is. How strong is our filter to let ideas through so that we are protective of our time and we are protective of other things that we value? For some of us, that might be our dog. For some of us, it might be our investments. For some of us, it might be our family. For some of us, it might be our motorcycle, right? Whatever, baking, cooking, walking in, taking night hikes, whatever it is that we have, that's going to be the key driver, I think, of do I want to spend the time on doing this? And being able to bring that back and have a starting place. Do I even want to go to the trouble to flesh out this idea to get buy-in?
Right. I mean, is there going to be enough, can I create enough value for the world that it's even worth pursuing? Right. I mean, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
And then is it within your moral framework as well? I mean, there's a lot of money right now in marijuana, right?
Yep.
But if you've got kids and you tell them, hey, don't smoke pot, well, that's probably not a good moral fit for you to get in the marijuana business if you don't want your own family to do it, right?
Yeah.
Or some of these, other things like, let's say e-cigs or whatever it is.
Sure.
So that would, for me, would be like, well, probably a really good business, great margins, high growth, right?
Yeah.
But not within a moral framework.
Our fears can show up. The itty bitty choir between our ears can show up. And we also can fall back on our previous successes, right, Mark? And so when we've only seen glimpses of success, how do we take all of that learning and shift it around so that we can take the glimpses of success to have more sustained success?
Well, I mean, it depends how you define success.
Sure.
So how are you defining success?
In every form, right? I'm making
form.
more money, or I'm feeling fulfilled, or I see the contribution that I'm making to the world, right? It could be, I think, it might apply to those three definitions, what you're going to say, but it might not. And if it doesn't, pick one.
Right. So, okay. So based on, that your personal definition of success.
Yeah. We're setting up, we're having common knowledge here for the show. Yep.
Right. And you're getting glimpses of it, right? Pretty good.
Yes.
Heroin addicts get a glimpse of a high. They keep going back to it. So I think that's a good fundamental framework to work in, is having these glimpses of success and building on that to have more glimpses and more glimpses until you have something really valuable that you've built. However, if you're not getting any glimpses, right? Time to pivot.
Yes, I wouldn't even say iterate. I would agree with you. Make a left turn, make a right turn, turn around, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, it's less money. Instead of patching a leaky boat, just find a new boat.
So we were talking about personal values. We were talking about reconciling what we know. We were talking about the fact that we've got to let go. And I'm saying we need to, because it's sometimes the only way forward. You were talking about a leaky boat. Sometimes I talk about an anchor, same concept, right? You've actually taken something of, here's how this particular real estate business works. And this is what works really well in this business. And then you've said, and I want more. And whatever is behind the I want more, right? The challenge, the fulfillment, the money, the excitement, whatever it is. And then you flipped it on its head and said, so now what? And then when you've got that, you flipped it on its head and said, so now what again? Which is a kind of iteration, right? It's a paradigm shift, and willing to look at the same thing. And sometimes, some people say, put on a new hat. And other people say, look at it with fresh eyes. I'm like, turn the thing upside down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that allows you to keep moving forward and to keep trying these new things. So I'm curious, as we're wrapping up 2018, would you be willing to share with us one of your biggest obstacles and how you overcame it this past year?
Sure. Let me think. My biggest obstacle this year, and how I overcame it. So I think one of the biggest obstacles, one of my biggest things is, getting back to personal values, is I want to work when I want, where I want, and with whom I want. Mm-hmm. So as the team started to grow and we started taking on more clients, the work with whom you want started to kind of go to the wayside. And I started, having these people that were coming into my life that, I think Google has this famous quote, like, they don't hire anybody that they wouldn't spend 8 hours, stuck in an airport with. Right. Well, I don't want to work with anybody that I don't want to at least have a beer with, or, and do that. And so that was a problem. And so kind of going back and having the courage to fire a paying customer, and because they were taking up too many resources personally and professionally of me or my team. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't right. That was a challenge, I think, for me, on many different levels, because it's hard to give back revenue, right? Yeah. It's hard to say no. But in what I found was, when I did that, the team respected me more, and we were able to grow and have a better client base than just, bigger. So that was really something that I had to personally struggle with. The team struggled with, but once I had the courage to do it, got rid of a few bad apples, we really took off. And now we're just, we know, like, I've got the spidey sense now. Like, I'm not taking on any client that doesn't pass that test.
Interesting. So you strengthened your culture, is what you did.
Yes.
You strengthened the shared meaning in the way you work together, and you're willing to be the holder of that. That's fantastic. Wow.
Yeah. 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 That was it.
So what makes it bold to recognize that there might be unexpected or undiscovered ways in terms of finding new revenue to grow your business?
Well, I think what makes it bold is you don't know until you do it. And so the not knowing is a risk.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's bold to put yourself out there and say to the world, hey, here's this thing that I want to make. What do you think? Right? And then you got to deal with it. And then it's bold to deal with it. And I think that's really what makes life worth living in a lot of ways is kind of dancing on that edge of failure and doing those things that you don't know. It'd be boring if we knew.
You heard it here. This is the Voice of Bold Business Radio, and you can find program notes at voiceofboldbusiness.com/p191. That is voiceofboldbusiness.com/p for program 191. You may also search for multiple revenue streams for growth. It's your turn to keep the conversation going. You're learning a lot. I'm learning a lot. Mark is sharing a lot. And so what we want to know is using hashtag VBB Radio, using email radio@reddirection.com. Tell us how you have found extra revenue, multiple revenue streams, ways to repurpose within your organization for scalability. And then wherever you're listening to this, go back to YouTube, go back to iTunes, iHeartRadio, the website, you name it, and rate this. Tell us what you thought of this program. Tell Mark how valuable this information was to you today for the problems that you are chewing on to achieve your growth strategy. And most importantly, the conversation is how we learn from each other's experiences without having to have the experiences ourselves. So take this, use it, and consider this question. How are you integrating multiple revenue streams for growth into your business?
The Voice of Bold Business Radio gives you insights about how to achieve your company's growth strategy. Use hashtag VBB Radio or email us at radio@reddirection.com to ask questions and share your experiences. Add your voice to the conversation. Together, we define what being an effective leader means today. Special thanks to the Scott Treatment for technical production. Thank you for joining us.